Very welcome here, Patrick.
Thank you.
I've known you for some time, and we often are on similar kind of events and speaking about AI in different ways.
Right.
And really glad to have you here. I think you are one of the more powerful and experienced speakers out there that can make complicated things sound understandable.
I do my best.
Okay, so we had a little discussion before about very interesting topics like psychedelics and philosophy and things that I really enjoy and love to hear more about. But perhaps we can start by just giving a quick background about yourself. Who is Patrick Couch?
Yeah, sure, certainly. So I'm Patrick Couch. I currently work for IBM. I specialize in business development for artificial intelligence. So I basically help customers derive value out of that. But I came to this field sort of through a series of crooked paths, I guess. I studied philosophy, literature, literary theory, German philosophy at the university, and that sort of made me write this master thesis on the literature of William Gibson. Uh-huh. So I wrote...
How long ago was that?
I was at the Stockholm University in the middle of the 90s. So I wrote my master thesis maybe 94 or something like that. And it was a look at William Gibson's fiction, especially Neuromancer, in terms of human-machine boundary blurring as a plot device. Uh-huh. And I was thinking I was going to pursue a academic career, and sort of I went on to pursue a PhD. But then sort of at the end of the 90s, the dot-com era just got ushered in, and all of a sudden all of my friends that were at sort of business school, they started up companies, and they were all like dot-com companies, and it was sort of time for me to take a breather from academics. So I ended up in Stockholm working for this small little startup, and that was sort of my entry point into the wonderful world of IT. But I've always been very interested in technology and especially the internet. I mean, I think I'm born in the 70s, and I think a lot of us got really fascinated when the internet started becoming real. Some of us had been early out on like bulletin boards, and I benefited from having...
Did you have the modems as well?
I had the modems, absolutely. And I had an older brother who was very early on the bulletin boards. Yeah. And when these early web browsers came out, like Gopher and Netscape. Well. Oh yeah. No, I was early out there, and it was just fascinating to me. And I sort of I immediately understood the potential of it, and I actually immediately sort of made use of it in my research. So when I wrote that master thesis on Neuromancer, the first thing I did was go and identify a digital copy of the book, so that I could download it off of one of these bulletin boards and query the text.
All right.
So I could sort of use a digital version of that piece of literature, and that was very helpful because I immediately understood that I can do analytics on the text itself, and that can sort of make my research more effective. So then I sort of transitioned over into the world of IT, and I haven't really made my way back. But the funny thing with that is, now with IBM and the current role that I have, it has sort of come full circle. So a lot of the things that I was sort of looking at from a literary theory perspective has become sort of reality. And so reality has sort of caught up with the fiction, and I find the whole thing very fascinating.
I can imagine you wish you had IBM Watson Analytics available at your math thesis work, right?
Yeah, that would have been great. That would have been great. But it's really fascinating the way fiction can sort of establish like a target for reality to create. So I think a lot of the people that read Neuromancer in the middle of the 80s when it was published, and in that book you have William Gibson coined the term cyberspace. Oh, yeah. And I think a lot of people that read that, they just said, hey, that's a great idea. Let's go create that. And then they were really already at it, of course. I mean, this was middle of the 80s. But still, I think fiction can, if powerful fiction will move you, and it will move you into action. And I think that's what we're seeing. And now the whole thing has just taken off and become a beast on its own.
Yeah, an interesting background, as I said. And how did that proceed? What was the company you started working with again?
Yeah, so the company I started with was called Versus Market. And it was this brainchild of these guys, these friends of mine. And it was about financial betting, like online gambling in the financial services. So it was basically a offering to people to sort of gamify stock trading.
Yeah.
So you were sort of you were pitching stocks against stocks, and depending on who performed the better, you had a winner. So it wasn't really about like the actual. Like it wasn't like investing in stocks, but it was more like putting money on stocks as you would on horses or any other sort of head-to-head competition. And that was great. I mean, I learned a tremendous amount at that company. And like so many other companies in that era, when the Twin Towers came down, the whole market just went kapow. And that company eventually went bankrupt as well.
What do you think about the stock market, the way it's working today, and the high frequency trading and that type of processes?
I think that there was a very interesting picture floating around the internet a couple of months back in light of this whole COVID situation, where you saw there was a screen dump of some news broadcast, and I'm sure we can fetch that up. But you saw the massive unemployment numbers, and sort of in the those what are they called, the things that sort of pass by on the screen.
Yeah, the
subtext or something. And then on the screen behind the news anchor, there was the stock market like going, like shooting through the roof, right? So when I saw that, it was like that's what's wrong with the stock market. You can have a complete financial sort of personal financial crisis for a lot of people, but still the stock market can perform. And so you have a disconnect between like real world economics and the financial speculative stock market. And then we see this again and again, where we have the valuation of stocks reflecting psychology or people's beliefs rather than the real world value that certain companies provide. So I'm not a big fan of that dynamic. I think it's an unfortunate one. I think there will be alternatives to that as we mature into the digital age.
So do you think AI will be like a positive or negative impact on how the stock markets will work in like 5-10 years?
Well, yeah.
Let's imagine you had someone that could understand text to a much higher degree than AI could in 10 years back. And
so I don't know. I mean, this is perhaps a question maybe more for economists, but my thinking is that a lot of the great thing that AI can do is it can optimize suboptimal systems and processes. It could just like hit the index basically. And so I'm thinking if you have more information processed, you will have a better, more close to reality, so evaluation of, say, risk, performance, benefit, and those things. And in that sense, I think that potentially artificial intelligence can bring to the stock market a sense of grounding in more facts, and sort of move away slightly from that gut feeling approach of like maverick traders, like, yeah, let's do this. So
less speculation, you think, in the future with more intelligence in
I'm a positive guy. I mean, that's what I'm hoping for, and maybe that's sort of clouding my judgment, but I think it can have a good, healthy impact on financial trading, actually.
And what happened after that, and how did you get started at IBM?
Yeah, right. So I when the stock market came down, the Twin Towers came down, the new economy turned out to be bound by certain constraints similar to the old economy. There was basically for myself personally, then what happened was that since I had then spent a lot of time, a couple of years, in this company, which was an online betting company, the learnings from that eventually put me at the Swedish horse betting company ATG.
Right.
Because at this time, this was early 2000, there was then a discussion of a deregulation of the gambling market in the Nordics and in Sweden, which has now sort of happened, but it was discussed then. And ATG was a very traditional horse betting company with most betting done at the tracks. And they realized that, okay, if external player comes in, actors come in, and the digital online betting takes off, then we are exposed. So we need to get young kids in and help us figure out how to sort of think about this. So I was recruited into ATG, and I was working with analytics there to try and sort of help them better become sort of data driven, and it was quite successful. So ATG sort of managed to really make good on the value of digitalization for them. So they
digitization, perhaps
they did that too. Absolutely. But what they understood was that they could take the track and they could turn that track into a digital experience by simply offering up the live feeds, because they had their own media company, Kanal 75. So they basically offered up the live stream to the online world. And then all of a sudden, boom.
Typical digitalization then.
Yeah, so then the track, the betting on the track went down, but in overall turnover it went up. So that was a clever move. And then, so I was working with that, with a couple of really, really clever people over there. And then one thing led to the other, and at some point I got this call from this recruiter saying that there was this company wanting to have a chat, and I was like, okay. And then it turned out it was IBM. And I was like, what, IBM? And this was 2010. And at that time, although I had been in the IT business for 10 years and I'd been doing fairly advanced information analytics stuff, IBM wasn't on my radar really as a company of great interest for what, in terms of what I was sort of looking for in terms of advanced analytics and really sort of refined ways of working with information. But that turned out to be sort of just a misconception on my part, because this was sort of around the time that IBM started looking into artificial intelligence more explicitly, and they formed the Watson Group as a business unit, and then 2011 I think was the Watson Jeopardy Challenge. So it turned out to be a very interesting company to get on board at that time. So that
the
was
Jeopardy thing is super interesting and would be very interesting to hear more about. But they had a business unit for Watson before the Jeopardy channel.
Yeah, they did. So they formed. No, that's incorrect on my part. I think the Watson Challenge was in 2011. I think maybe the Watson Group was formally formed as a business unit 2013.
Okay.
But anyway, there was a lot of talk about Watson when we banged the drum on the Jeopardy Challenge, and IBM has this tradition of posing themselves grand challenges, and of course Google now sort of co-opted that term. They talk about the moon shots, but it's really like an IBM approach, I think, to tackling really, really, really interesting problems, and of course, landing on the moon was a grand challenge. Beating Kasparov at chess was a grand challenge, and Watson was a very, very grand challenge. And the way to test, what can be done with language-based processing and sort of mimicking human language, and what then became the whole field of natural language processing and natural language understanding was sort of ushered in, I think, by IBM with that Watson Jeopardy Challenge, because it was so amazing and it was so out of there.
Right.
I know you are, you have a philosophical side, but also you are one of the guys that I read on or listen to on some frequent basis. You do small vlogs, you do blogs. What is your purpose? Why do you do that?
What is my purpose?
Yeah, with this point.
We need some psychedelics, I think, for this one.
Yeah, Terence said, the human mind needs pharmacological intervention to fix us, to restore us into the guy.
No, but everything like this takes time, and we sit
Yes.
here, we do this on our spare time with a quite clear passion and purpose. What is yours?
But I'm passionate for the possibility that the internet brings, or broader. But I think there's a risk of a co-option of the whole field, and I think we need to sort of take it back. I mean, I sort of think of it similarly to you remember the situation a couple of years back in Sweden when, or many years back, I guess, there was this conversation in media about the use of the Swedish flag and how we couldn't. Should we really use the Swedish flag?
We need to retake it to why we need to be like this. You talk about this whole industry.
Yeah, we need to be proud of what the Swedish flag can represent in terms of the Swedish culture and what we have to bring forth. I mean, the public access, the allemansrätten, the public access right to land, or offentlighetsprincipen, the public access to information. All of these great things that we sort of embed, or we can embed into the Swedish flag symbol. We should take it back, and we should say, you guys can't have it. We're going to have it.
And you want to take this stuff back when it comes to technology.
Yeah, so I think we should again. I mean, it was good that you turned this whole bleak thing about Amazon around into something more positive, because there is a lot of possibility there. But if we limit ourselves to the echo chamber of our own curated news feeds on various social media platforms, we will not see the potential of the thing. We will just see a reflection of some of the algorithms playing out recommendation games on us, and it will look pretty bleak, because I will flip through US political news and we just go like, Jesus Christ, this will never work. And so I'm out there to just give another voice.
And what is your key message? What are you trying to, what do you want to say? If because I feel the same. You do things, you vlog, you do things, but ultimately there is a key message you want to convey. What is your key message?
I think my key message is perhaps to end on a quote by George Clinton of Funkadelic and Parliament fame, and he said, "You meet in life the exact reproductions of your own thoughts. So be careful of the thoughts seeds plant in the garden of your mind, because seeds grow after their kind."
Cool.
And so I think we should really feel that we do have the power to define our own reality, and that's my key message. You can be the not only the hero of the novel of your own life, but you could be its author. Truly, you can.
Fantastic.
And nobody can tell you otherwise. If they do, they can.
Let's all go out and be the authors and heroes of our own life.
Yeah, for sure. Bring it forth. And when we do, I have a basic, solid opinion or view of people being good people.
Yeah.
I think people are idiots because of poor circumstance.
Or knowledge, or situation, context.
Yeah, so I think if you just allow people to be themselves, you feed them, you clothe them, you take care of them when they're sick, then people will be really nice guys, really nice people. It's only if you take away that you will have, the Black Friday mentality putting forth and center. So we don't want that. So we want, what was it that George said about the Funkadelic is one who's dedicated to the feeling of good? But then again, how can something so bad feel so good? So I don't know. I don't know.
Awesome. It was a true pleasure to have you on this show, and I'm sure we meet again sometime soon.
I certainly hope so, for sure, guys.
Awesome.